Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In this episode, I want to look at change, as I often do, and I want to look at how you can make your life better, so your future life becomes better really quickly, so that the life that you lead is going to be more enjoyable, more productive, more fruitful, all the things that you want from life. I want to talk about how to get that quickly with a simple question from a business book, actually, but which I think has an application for us in terms of making our lives enjoyable and fulfilling in all of the ways that we want moving forward. And if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll know that I like the Pareto Principle, named after an Italian economist, which basically says that the vast majority of our results come from a tiny amount of causes. So in a business, for instance, 80% of their income might come from 20% of their products. It's sometimes called the 80-20 principle as well for that reason. Now, the numbers aren't really strict, 80-20. They often crop up, but it basically just means that there's a vital few that cause the vast majority of our results. And so if we can dig into what those vital few are, we can make really huge changes in our life that going forward makes it really fulfilling for us. Now, the interesting thing about this 20% is because the Pareto Principle works on any set of data, I suppose, then you can actually dig into that vital few and find the vital few within the vital few and keep drilling down. And so what starts as an 80-20 principle, the 20% causes 80% of the results, if you drill down one level further, then what it actually means, and I'll do the maths for you to save you the hassle, 4% of our inputs cause 2/3 of the results in our life, which is phenomenal, isn't it? Out of all the things we do and are experiencing, it's 4% that's creating 2/3 of our results. And so you can see that honing in on those 4% and making some changes there is going to have a really incredible impact on how fulfilling our lives are going forward. It also helps us to realize that change is possible, and that just because the struggle is big doesn't mean that the solution is big. It actually points to the fact that smaller changes are what is going to have a really powerful and impacting effect on the happiness of our lives going forward, the fulfilling nature of our lives going forward. And again, if you dig into that 4% and go even further, what you'll actually find, this is really revolutionary, I think. Over half of our results, 51% of our results in life, are caused by just 1% of the causes. Just 1% of what we do is responsible for over half of the joy, the misery, the success in our lives. Which is pretty remarkable, isn't it? And even more, it points to finding out the power of that 1% if we can only identify what that 1% is. So if your aim is to change your life going forward so that from this day forth you live a really fulfilling life, then I'm going to tell you the question that comes from a book called The One Thing. I'm going to adapt the question actually because it's a business book. But the question essentially with my adaptation from the book The One Thing by Gary Keller is a question for us to keep asking over and over again throughout our life. So it becomes like a tool that we keep on picking up over and over again. What's the one change I can make so that by making it, everything else will become easier? What's the one change I can make so that by making it, everything else will be easier? So when you're looking at this fulfilling life that you want, moving forward, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the year after this year, the decade after this decade, and you imagine yourself living the life that you really want, what's the one change that you can make so that by doing it, everything else will become easier? If you want to live a fulfilling life in that way, and you imagine yourself, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, longer even, living that fulfilling life, what's the one thing that you can do so that by doing it, everything else will be easier or even unnecessary? That was the original question. And so this is a tool that you keep on using in life, because what it helps you to do is find the 1%. If over half of the struggles that you're facing at the moment are down to this one thing in your life, and that by changing it, that will then transform over half of the struggle in your life so that it becomes wonderful instead. Isn't this a powerful tool? So that tomorrow, the day after, the month after, the year after, the decade, and the many, many years ahead of you can be made more fulfilling just by changing one thing about how life is lived. And so the power of Pareto is that it drills down, that when you apply Pareto to itself, you get to the point where over half of what's going on for us is caused by 1%. And so even if the struggle seems big, even if the mountain seems high to climb, it actually might not be. It might just be that there's one particular step that we need to take that gets us to the top of that mountain. It's likely, in fact, that there's just 1% of stuff that's going on in life that we need to tweak that will have a transformative effect. And that transformative effect means that we then get a life that is really satisfying, that is really enjoyable to live. And so what's the one change that you can make so that by doing it, everything else moving forward in life is just more enjoyable for you? So that's my invite. Think of, a particular struggle that you're going through at the moment. Appreciate and understand that over half of that will be down maybe to one thing that's going on. And think what that one thing might be that you could tweak that would ensure that the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your life would be more enjoyable. The one change that you can make, the one tweak that you can do so that by doing it, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your life will just be easier and more enjoyable. And so if you find this useful, then please do pass it on. If you'd like to work with me directly, I'm Alun Parry, and you can find out more about me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And please do subscribe to the podcast as well, because it's completely free and there's a new episode every day. So if you don't want to miss those episodes, then just subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another one.